Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, this is Call Talk for Wednesday, March 31st. Our topic today is agent satisfaction, how to measure it, and how to manage it. During the call, we invite you to ask questions via email at calltalk@benchmarkportal.com or chat on calltalk.tv or call in to ask your host your questions and interact with the show. The number to call in is 347-857-3117. Everyone who asks a question, email or phone on the show will receive a free copy of Bruce's book, Benchmarking at its Best, and one person will be chosen at random to win an in-depth reality check benchmarking report valued at $1,500. And now I'd like to introduce the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Hey, Sean. Thank you very much for that introduction. And as you recall, Sean, in the last session we were celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day. Last time we all got to be Irish, and tomorrow we all get to play the fool at least once. And just a reminder, if there's something cute and funny you can do for your center, those things can be real morale boosters that people will talk about for days to come. And in fact, if anyone has a favorite story or prank, please send it in to Sean, and we'll tell everybody what it is on the next show. So please do that for us. Now I'd like to introduce our guest, Dane Peterson, and she'll help us sort through the agent satisfaction issue. Dane is somebody who has over 20 years experience in our industry. She has been a call center manager, a software salesperson. She's done a lot of consulting. She has worked with us at BenchmarkPortal as a lead instructor of the College of Call Center Excellence, and we've worked with her on many other assignments as well. And so I'm really happy to welcome you to the program, Dane.
Thanks, Bruce. Glad to be here.
Okay, great. Well, Dane, I know that you've been doing some research on employee satisfaction and employee tenure, and maybe we could start out by just sort of framing the issue by talking a little bit about, what is the satisfaction and the employee tenure like these days out there?
Well, it was a very interesting process of looking at the research that's been done recently in this area. And one of the things that I found really interesting was that the average tenure today of employees across all parts of the organization is only 3 years. So what that says to me is we have a lot of work to do to find the right employee, making sure that we get the right person for the right fit. In fact, in the January 10th USA Today, there was research from the Conference Board, New Age, and Concourse Consulting, all of which look at HR and personnel issues across all businesses. And what they found was pretty alarming. In 1987, if you can imagine, 61% of the workers said they were happy with their current job. In 2009, that's dropped to 45%, and actually even dropped quite a bit from 2008. The researchers speculate that the drop from 2008 to 2009 is largely a concern about the stability of the workplace and the security of their jobs. In fact, half of those people felt secure in their jobs.
Right. Well, and so trying to make people feel secure in the workplaces that we're responsible for is sometimes hard because they hear about what's going on in the greater enterprise and the economy and on the whole. And I guess all we can do is to try to make people feel secure with us as their leaders and try to be honest with them with what's going on in terms of their jobs and their job security.
I think that's a really important point, and we can't always tell everything we know, but that honesty of the leader is the most important factor for our agents. And if we can, just be candid with them, that there are times that we don't know the answers or that we're not in a position to share what is being discussed, goes a long ways. But that candor with our team members really does make a difference. And sometimes there's not much we can do when the organization is going through some significant financial issues.
Mm-hmm. And so really it is important, though. Sometimes we say, well, there's nothing we can do, throw up our hands, but as we said in talking about leadership is never having an off day, and some of those days can be really tough where we, are dealing with people who are under stress because they're not sure what's going to happen with their jobs. We may not be totally sure about what's going to happen with ours. But we do have to find the ways to be good leaders in those situations. And because at the end of the day, people tend to be happy at work because they're happy with their bosses and they're happy with the atmosphere they deal with, and they tend to leave bosses more than they leave jobs. Is that your experience as well, Dane?
Absolutely. And I think the research over the last many years has backed that up, that in fact, Gallup has some very good research that it's around the issues of my workplace and my relationship with my direct supervisor or manager that have the greatest impact. So working with those team members in a very close relationship, providing them direction and coaching and development is really what it's about, rather than many of the external factors that surround us.
Okay, so if we're really sort of taking responsibility for this, one of the things that I know a lot of call center managers and supervisors have issues with is how to deal with the different age groups that they have responsibility for. In other words, if we're talking about agent satisfaction, we're not always talking about doing the same things for everyone and having it work for everyone, are we?
No, absolutely not. We have huge variance in what the age groups are in our centers today. With the current economy, people are not retiring or quitting work. They're either working full-time or part-time, continuing in the workplace. We have, late teens and early 20-year-olds coming into our center. So there's a huge variance in the age groups and what drives each of those and what's important to each of those age groups. But interestingly, in some of that same research that I mentioned earlier, we found that what agents and employees want from the workplace really is not all that different. In fact, the most important thing in this particular piece of research was that they are looking for a fair benefits package, and that was rated number one by the more mature, by the younger workers, and the second most important thing by more mature. They want the opportunity to learn and grow. They want their workplace to be enjoyable and also work that is stimulating. And that's one of our challenges in the center that we work in is how can we make the call center or contact center work stimulating. Right. And that's about helping our team members learn and grow.
Okay. Well, let's just maybe say a few words about measuring agent satisfaction, and then I know that Sean is getting questions already that he can answer. Well, let's talk about that because there are a lot of companies that we find don't measure agent satisfaction or don't measure it in any different way than they measure satisfaction for all the rest of the employees. What thoughts do you have on that, Dane?
Well, having come from the corporate world where we in the call center were just part of the larger corporate employee satisfaction survey, one of the things that we learned is we had to get that information as quickly as we possibly could and then try and extract whatever learnings we could from that. Of course, optimally, the best is to have a survey that really speaks to the issues in the contact or call center environment, but that's not always immediately possible. But there's still a lot of learning that you can get from the corporate surveys. Let me, if I may, just share a quick story. In my last corporate role, I came in just as the company was completing their employee SAT survey process. During that time, we found that generally we were lower than most of the other departments in our overall scores. And what we did was take that information. Again, it was not focused specifically on the call center, but there was still opportunity to learn from it. And we identified those frontline managers or supervisors that had the highest score in some attribute. And we engaged with them to learn what they were doing that might allow them to score more highly than the rest of our teams, and used that knowledge to put together what we called our brown bag lunches, very common in most organizations, and had those high-scoring performers share what they did with the other team members and other managers in the group. And actually it worked out very well for us. We did find that in the subsequent survey that we had jumped considerably and were no longer considered the low performers in the organization.
Yeah, no, it's a great story, and actually mirrors one that I went through last year where there was some very low agent sat. We got very good feedback from the SAT survey, and if there's anybody listening who's never done or has not recently done an agent SAT survey and wants to do one that's not too expensive and it can be very revealing, let us know, because there's some really good ways to do that. And it's necessary, too, because so much of your center depends on good agents who are satisfied. But from the survey, we took took about 3 or 4 things that needed to be changed them, made sure that the agents knew, this is really important, communicate the fact that, you've been listened to, we're making these changes because you told us about it. And, Dane, we found the same thing. There was a big boost in agent satisfaction the next time around because people felt that they were being listened to. Okay, great. Sean, you have some questions for us?
Yes. First question came from Mike. We are trying to get better about hiring agents. How can we drive information from satisfaction surveys back to our hiring policies to get better overall results?
Good question. Okay, good process question there. Dane?
Well, I'd say first is you need to really look at that agent satisfaction survey and try and kind of build some buckets, if you will. An easy place to start is a demographic slice of it. Find those people that are highly satisfied and then understand what common attributes might they have. If you work with a temp to hire agency, a lot of times they can work with you on some of their profiling tools. There are many vendors that have these that will help you identify your top performing, most satisfied agents, and then use that as the benchmark as you're screening potential candidates for your center.
Okay, and oftentimes those characteristics will not necessarily even be what they did in their previous jobs, but really who they are as a person and their sort of personal characteristics.
Exactly. One of my mottos has always been hire for attitude. We can teach the skills when they get here.
Right. Okay, good. Very good. Sean, do you have another one?
I do. The next question just came in as a guest. With so many centers cutting back on staffing and hiring due to economic conditions, are companies focusing on agents or on more core business needs?
Okay, so on core business needs, I imagine they mean are they really not focusing on the call center at all? And if the person wants to call in, too, and to sort of describe a little more what they're thinking about, but I'm interpreting that to mean that the call center is getting short shrift while the company, in its bid to stay alive, is concentrating on other things. And, of course, here what we have been preaching all along is that those companies that do a good job with customer service are the ones that are most likely to survive in these economic times. That the big differentiator among products and services that are oftentimes pretty similar is really good customer service. And if you're having a hard time and if the differentiator is going to be customer service, then really good communications with agents saying, look, we need you to perform in a certain way. We need you to have certain metrics, and we need to sort of survive and to prosper together is one of the big communications issues that are necessary for managers with regard to their agents. Dane, what would you like to add to that?
Well, here's one thing. So I think we as managers need to assist our corporate partners, if you will, on how important the service is to our customers and what it delivers to the bottom line. And there is a great deal of research available that really shows those companies who provide superior service, differentiating their product and services in the marketplace, have higher rates of profitability, share owner value, etc. So one of the things that we can do is go out, find that information, and use that to present both to our management and to our agents. And as you suggest, Bruce, is help our team members understand the importance of the service that they are delivering to our customers.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's a key point. And Sean's telling me that there's another one he's got through here, but the communication in tough times, or just in general, is extremely important. And as you've mentioned to me before when we talked about this, Dane, that doesn't mean tweeting everybody on everything every 5 minutes, but rather communicating the important things really well to the various people in your group, in your call center, so that you're using the cultural hooks that will satisfy and inform a Gen Xer, a baby boomer, making sure that you think about how the message is being received by each of those categories. Sean, why don't I send it over to you again for the next question?
Okay, this next question came in from Kevin. Kevin asks, agent satisfaction and turnover seem to vary among our supervisor groups. How should I manage this?
Okay, so you're kind of breaking your call center down into the supervisor groups, and you're seeing that there's differences in satisfaction among those, and turnover too. Very important. Okay, Dane, why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, I think actually we have research that shows that the most effective method of dealing with retention is to have that as part of our frontline management performance metrics. So driving that to the people who really have the most direct impact, my supervisor, my manager. Last summer I worked with a client organization. They drive it to the supervisor level. So each supervisor is actually responsible and has a goal for turnover of their group. And it is a sliding scale that they take a look at. And what I'm saying there is that if my team's turnover was 18% last year, my goal this year might be 16%. So they're continually looking for improvement, and they have had huge success in reducing turnover in a very competitive work market, even in these economic times, by having that as part of their frontline management team's performance metric.
Okay.
Now, you have to give the supervisor the skills in coaching, performance management that they need in order to, have them really truly understand what they're doing and the impact that it might have as well.
Yeah, actually, that's what training and education are all about, is taking people with the right prerequisites, giving them the proper training, and then giving them a little bit of space and rope to do a good job. And so supervisors are so important. What Kevin was mentioning here is that you can actually see who the good supervisors are and who the bad supervisors are. And we talk about turning supervisors into retention champions. Those are the people who, in fact, and maybe we should talk in terms of retention and satisfaction champions. In other words, who are those supervisors who have the folks under them who feel the most satisfied and who stay the longest? And have we, in fact, trained our supervisors for that job, for that role? Or do we just acknowledge that so-and-so is really good at it, and another person isn't so good at it? Well, I think one of the takeaways perhaps today is that we should make sure that everyone who's in a supervisory role is trained so that they can, in fact, do a good job at retaining people and at motivating them and keeping them satisfied. Because once again, it's that frontline boss that has the biggest impact on whether people are happy or not.
And I would take that a step farther. Not only do we need to think about the right match for our agents, but we need to think about the right match for the supervisory role as well. So who usually becomes the team lead or supervisor? It's often the high-performing agent. And the high-performing agent is not always necessarily the person with the kinds of interpersonal coaching, nurturing skills that we need in a supervisor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Sean has just signaled me that he has another question.
Yeah, so Jeff asked, we do an employee sat survey every year, and every year the call center employees are at the bottom in terms of satisfaction for the whole company. Is this normal?
That's right. Okay, and this is it ties in with something that Dane was talking about earlier, and maybe Jeff was writing his question while she was doing it. But there is a bit of a sense, in the case of many call centers, that they're the red-haired stepchild of the organization, and then there are these things that happen during the course of the year, like a employee satisfaction survey where they perform poorly, where it all seems to confirm that this is the sort of situation and there's nothing to be done about it. And, of course, we know that's not true. But, Dane, why don't I let you give your thoughts on that?
Sure. It's often like what I hear when I'll go into a new organization, and they just don't understand why they're getting all these calls and what's going on with customer service that we're getting all these calls. Well, in fact, it's not a symptom of the customer service operations. It may be a symptom of something else entirely within the organization that is driving calls into the center. And again, when we look at our agent satisfaction, it may not be a symptom of what's happening in the center. It may be something of much greater impact from the organization. And it is one of those things that the agents do feel like excuse the expression, the redheaded stepchild, but that we need to, as leaders, be able to address in our organization. Here's a perfect example. There's a company picnic, but we can't close the call center down and let everybody go to it. So how do you address some of those things? Just like we need to think about things differently in our centers, we need to think about things differently from our employee stat survey. So instead of taking those numbers that came in from that corporate survey, we need to be the leaders and spokesperson for our organization to, HR, whomever the organization is, that we have different issues in the center, and we need a very specific type of survey that will address the issues of the center. We don't have the same vacation policies oftentimes. There are times that in our centers we are blocked from days off. That doesn't happen in many marketing organizations or other operations. So we really need to push back on those corporate surveys, not make ourselves compared to the marketing organization and the accounting and the executive office, because we live in a different world, and we need to build a different survey model for that.
Yeah. I was thinking, too, that in many cases the agents are dissatisfied or frustrated because of processes that, in fact, can be changed. And we just have to find those processes, talk to them, communicate them through the satisfaction surveys or the brown bag lunches or any kind of face-to-face communication, and find out what the problems are. In some cases, they're very frustrated because the knowledge management system they have, or their agent desktop, is hard to use in order to satisfy the customer. And they want to satisfy the customer. They have their heart in the right place, but they don't have the tools to do it with. And in some cases, as you said, it's the organization around them, Dane, that can make them miserable, like marketing, right? Marketing, those folks who come up with the special offers that result in a ton of calls and they didn't know anything about it or didn't know enough about it in order to be able to actually able to redress those properly. Product management, a new product goes out and all of a sudden there's a slew of questions and they're not really ready for them. And as you said, sometimes the situation with the company picnic, I was in a center not that long ago, which has as part of its company philosophy a holistic approach to the employee's life, which includes some classes that are given as well as a company gym. The thing is, the company gym and those classes are all given over at headquarters, and the call center is a few miles away. So it doesn't really fit into the lifestyle and the schedule of the people at the call center. So they're kind of left out of all of that. That kind of whole life program. So we need to address situations in order to make the agents feel like they're more part of things. And in some cases, we have to create that radial organization. We have to develop the contacts with marketing, with the product people, with IT, so that we can, in fact, give our agents the tools that they need. Kind of a long answer there, but anything else to add to that, Dane?
I don't think so. I think you're just dead on in terms of establishing the relationships, because that's how we find out a lot about what's happening in the organization, and also how we're able to oftentimes change the implications for our department as well, is through developing those relationships and helping them understand the challenges that we have in the center. It's a very different world than accounting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. No, that's for sure. Okay, Sean, I think you have another question that's come in.
Yeah, this next question was from just a guest as well. They're not telling me their name. Do you feel that training agents 1 to 2 times per year will increase the overall satisfaction? And do you think having outside training can benefit the agent?
Okay. And Dane, here your position as a premier instructor can be brought into play here. So I'll let you take that one. Okay.
So, the answer is it really depends. 1 to 2 times a year, is probably not going to change agent satisfaction, depending on exactly what you're talking about and how you're delivering it. The value of training is to change behavior. So we want to change behavior. Maybe 1 to 2 times a year you have a new marketing campaign or new product, and you can train on that. But also throughout the year, as part of your coaching and performance management, there should be training, whether it's a very formal classroom training or it's a one-on-one coaching kinds of training. And many of the new technologies allow us to break down training into really bite-sized pieces, if you will, that enable us to deliver training in 15, 20-minute segments at the agent desktop. Those are the kinds of things that are valued because they understand that we're investing in them and that we have a true interest in helping them improve their performance. In terms of internal or external training, internal training is always about your products, your policies, your processes, the systems. You always need that. But I do think that there's often great value in bringing in some skills training from the outside. It's a fresh look. It's a new perspective. And seeing the same talking head in the classroom time after time loses some of its impact. And again, it sends the message that we value you, we are invested in your performance and your development.
Okay. No, that's a great answer, and I entirely agree with everything that you said. I think we're almost at the bottom of the hour, Sean, so if there are no more questions, maybe you could announce what's going on next week. I would like to thank Dane Peterson for being with us and for a fabulous job. A lot of great insights that come from your experience, Dane, so thank you very much for being with us.
It was my pleasure.
Dane, I would also like to thank you as well. Thanks for all your great insights in today's show. It was a great show. Thanks for all the participants who asked their questions. Don't forget, you can sign up for our reality check to see how your agent satisfaction compares to peers in your industry. Our winner of the in-depth reality check today is Jeff. Jeff, please send an email to calltalk@benchmarkportal.com, and we will get you your $1,500 report. Our next topic is complaints, how 3% of your calls take 30% of your time. That show will be on April 14th. Thank you very much for your time today, and have a great day.